Next week, the Association of Manitoba Municipalities is gearing up for its annual fall convention. This year, under the banner of Leadership in Motion. And the timing couldn't be more significant. With just 1 year until the next municipal elections, communities across Manitoba are heading into a period of transition. AMM is challenging municipal leaders to stay bold, stay forward thinking, and take the steps today that will shape tomorrow. Now, over the 3-day convention at Winnipeg's RBC Convention Centre, that theme, Leadership in Motion, will be front and center. Delegates will gather to learn, to connect, and to collaborate. The trade show returns with more than 140 exhibitors, all playing a role in moving the province forward. Popular social events like the Gala and the Municipal Mixer are back, alongside key business sessions, voting activities, and plenty of opportunities for professional development, networking, and breakout sessions. Simply put, the AMM is ready to serve its members, ready to engage with communities across every region of Manitoba, ready to partner, and ready to keep the province moving forward. And we're looking forward to being there in person as well. So in today's episode, we are sitting down with AMM President Kathy Valentino to talk about the convention, what to expect, what matters most, and the key takeaways for municipalities across Manitoba as we head in to the final year of their term. Did you know that Manitoba's municipalities have a voice working tirelessly for them every day? That's the Association of Manitoba Municipalities, your trusted partner in advocacy and action. From local roads to economic development, emergency services to community planning, the AMM ensures municipal priorities are heard loud and clear. They work side by side with local leaders and municipalities, empowering them to tackle the challenges that matter most to their communities. At the AMM, they bring municipalities together, united on the key issues and stronger as a team. Together, they work to make sure your community's concerns don't just get heard, they get action. So whether it's building infrastructure, strengthening local economies, or shaping provincial and federal policy, the AMM is here to make municipal issues matter. The Association of Manitoba Municipalities, advocating for your community, making a difference for all Manitobans. Learn more about how AMM is helping your community at amm.mb.ca. President Valentino, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting about next week's upcoming Association of Manitoba Municipalities Convention in beautiful downtown Winnipeg. Are you excited to meet with your members from across Manitoba at this year's convention?
I sure am. I absolutely love it. It's actually the best, besides going into everybody's municipalities, this is really like the highlight of our year and of our work, and it's great. It's always a good time.
This year's theme is Leadership in Motion. What does that mean as we enter into the final year of this term of office for Manitoba municipalities?
I love the theme. I think if that doesn't sum up us as leaders, leadership in motion, because we are always on the move and there's always so many kind of balls in motion on things we're dealing with. So I was like, this is so summing up maybe the last 3 years that we've all undertaken, and then leading into our year of moving into our final year as elected officials. So I think it truly reflects leadership on the move, and it reflects AMM's leadership movement to be moving forward always.
Over the last year and a half, almost 2 years since I've started doing this show and started talking to Manitoba municipal leaders, the leadership on one file has been very prominent, and particularly over the last few months, and that is around the constant call for bail reform with the federal government. I know the Minister of Justice just announced the new measures around bail reform earlier this year, or earlier this fall, I should say. Are you expecting it to play a prominent role as Manitoba seems to be leading the way on a lot of federal issues right now?
Yeah, definitely. We're very, very happy to see that come out at the federal level. And I'm very proud of AMM to be really the leader across Canada for the last few years. like before me, worked from President Blight to get this to the federal level and to get this on the radar. So that's something that AMM should be very proud of, and we're not stopping. And there is a really great partnership with, our some of our big cities. Mayor Gillingham, clearly is doing his social media platforms and getting some federal ministers that have now come to Winnipeg, and that he has actually spoke in the House of Commons about this. And we have a great partnership with Minister Wiebe, who is our provincial Minister of Justice. And of course, our Premier, Wab Kinew, who was able to get all premiers to sign a letter to give to the Prime Minister of the day at the time, saying that this was something that had to take place and that there needed to be a review of the Criminal Code of Canada. I mean, clearly rural crime, and the stats show it, rural crime is on the uprise in rural Canada. I say Manitoba's really taken the lead, but this is happening across Canada. This is why it had to come from Ottawa to make a change in the criminal code for bail reform. So we are very, very optimistic. When we see that they've unveiled this, there's work to be done, and we're not going to stop just because they've announced this. We're still continuing to meet Mayor Fawcett from Brandon, Mayor Knox from Portage la Prairie, Mayor Gillingham, with Minister Wiebe on, this is great they announced it, but what's next? We have to go through the kind of the recommendations that they have in there, and we have to have a say, and we have to have our Manitoba lens put on what they're proposing. So it just hasn't stopped. We're still continuing, but very, very cautiously optimistic that's finally being recognized. And just to give you an example, one of the things that we've said for Manitoba, when they talk about crime or the thefts and stuff, we don't want the recommendation from the change in the criminal code to be on like that big city like vehicle theft ring, say in southern Ontario, Quebec on the St. Lawrence Seaway. We want them to understand that a small crime on a farm in rural Canada that might be a quad is as big of a crime as this auto theft ring crime. So that's one of the messages we want to ensure still gets heard when they actually do some of the recommendations they're working on. Sorry, I might have went a bit too long on there.
No, because it brings up a conversation that I wanted to dive into a little bit is around some of the policies that are going to be debated at this year's convention. They seem to range around criminal reform to RCMP costs to even some wastewater treatment facilities. Is this the sort of what you're hearing when you travel across Manitoba, the policies that you're going to be debating at AMM this year? Is that what you've been hearing from Manitoba municipal leaders, whether it be up in the north or down in the Lakeland or even in the southwest part of the province? Are these what you're hearing?
Number one thing is public safety. So I always find it interesting. I'm glad you asked that. I find it so interesting when we go and tour into the municipalities. We do our touring January and February. There is always a common theme every year. One year it was healthcare, one year it was infrastructure. Like there's always one common theme. The last few years, the common theme is public safety. That it's not the responsibility of municipalities to have to pay to keep their streets safe. There is a federal responsibility. If they're federal RCMP contract, it's to keep our streets safe. So municipalities are having downloaded costs to be creative, to have all these different kind of programs to keep their communities safe. And that's wrong. It shouldn't be on the backbone of taxpayers in their municipal budgets to have to pay to keep their streets safe.
So is that going to be a topic of discussion a lot during the 3-day convention in downtown Winnipeg? Because I know when I speak to municipal leaders, even not just in Manitoba, but across Canada, the ongoing challenges, the ongoing future of the RCMP in these smaller rural municipalities is a top concern for a lot of municipal leaders. And what is the path forward? Do you expect that to be a topic of discussion between some delegates, or is just crime in general, so an overarching umbrella theme of crime and rural safety, is that going to be the theme?
When we talk about rural safety, I think the RCMP falls under that umbrella. So all of the policing costs that we're incurring, it's discouraging when the federal government announced the 1,000 RCMP. It was for federal policing. Like they've missed the other side of the equation for municipal policing and for municipalities that are paying for policing that have such huge vacancy rates. So there's a disconnect there. So the RCMP part completely falls under the public safety umbrella of how it's a concern for Manitoba municipalities. Our RCMP D division is what we are in Manitoba. They will have meetings booked continually through the 2 days with municipalities to book meetings with them. So that gives the opportunity for municipalities to meet with the D division leadership on specifics to their own municipality or community about RCMP issues. So public safety, I think, is the umbrella. All of that comes underneath it.
Looking at the 3-day convention in Winnipeg in the on the AMM website, AMM is challenging, and I'm quoting here, challenging municipal leaders to stay bold, stay forward thinking, and take steps today that will shape tomorrow. How does an event like the AMM Fall Convention take steps towards the future of what Manitoba can look like?
I'll give you an example of the wildfires that we all as a province dealt with this summer. It brought us all together. But if we're going to shape the future, municipal leaders need to speak up on how they were affected as a municipality to host evacuees, what the costs were, what the responsibilities were, what it was for those municipalities that were evacuated, how did it affect them, how can we do things different and safer in a more effective, timely manner, and how are we going to protect municipalities, whether it's wildfires or flooding or these climate change disasters. So talk about being bold. We have to speak up because we've just lived through a wildfire crisis. So we have to use our voices with clear-cut examples on how there can be change and how we can recognize things that were done well also. Because I'm always the optimist. I think it's important to say when things are good. So there were things that were good. So we need to recognize that also. But I think that's one clear-cut example that we have to be bold. The second thing is we need to be bold about this, the incentive or the language about building houses, because we cannot continue to build houses in Manitoba municipalities if we don't have the water and wastewater infrastructure to support it. And that message is clear-cut. So we need to be very strong as municipal leaders to say that we can't build our economy in our own municipality. How are we going to build Manitoba? We need an increase in funding in the Manitoba Water Services Board, and we need the province to be at the table as a partner and a voice for Manitoba municipalities federally to ensure that some of these housing infrastructure dollars that the federal government is proposing will allow for a component to include water and wastewater infrastructure. Because we all got to flush our toilets if we're going to build these houses. That's the bottom line.
So I'm going to ask the political question on the political show to the political leader of an organization that runs a political group. Do you feel like the province is hearing you? Because the conversations that I'm seeing through these policy resolutions that you're going to be debating this year, you could transpose them to last year, and it seems like we're going to be having some of the same conversations that we had in 2024 that we're having in 2025. Do you feel like the province is actually hearing you, or are you expecting a lively conversation between the bear pit session when Manitoba municipal leaders will be able to ask pointed questions to their minister or provincial representatives?
I think they are listening. I think our leadership across Manitoba is strong, and I'll use the word comfortable. After you've had a group of municipal leaders for 3 years, they're pretty adamant on what they see or what they feel a need is. So I would expect the conversation, I don't know if it's lively, but to be pretty bold, because things or projects that you've been working on for 3 years that maybe you haven't got any movement on, and you have 1 year to maybe not run again or run again. You should have a lot to say at this convention as a municipal leader. So I would hope that there is a lot of speaking up and that they are bold and they ask the questions that they really need some answers for, especially to finish off this final year coming up.
So, what's your message to delegates as they are about to start descending upon Winnipeg for this year's convention? How do they make the best of this year's convention? Because there might be some who are not running, who might say, okay, we're just going to go and just go through the motions. There might be some who are thinking about running for Reeve, running for mayor. What's your message to delegates to ensure that they take advantage of what you guys are offering around this leadership in motion theme?
I hope our delegates come with a real sense of optimism and enthusiasm to really get the answers that they want, or to be able to learn and take in everything we have to offer as we lead into this final year of our terms. I think that's really important. We have some really great breakout sessions. Take advantage of them. It's really where you have the opportunity to learn and hear some of the issues that we've been dealing with, that we have some people now to speak to us about. So the other thing is our trade show is a little bit bigger and better this year. So we hope they come with, well, they can pick up a notepad, but with a notepad to take ideas and talk and see what's out there, because we're pretty happy about that. And we've really tried to change things up. I'm never a believer of we always got to keep doing things the same. So we've always tried to listen and make some changes along the way. So I'm looking for some feedback for our delegates after the convention also. So come with an open mind, come with optimism, and make sure that the most important thing is that you network in the hallways and wherever you may network, because that's really where we solve all of our problems as municipal leaders. And that's so important, is to create relationships.
The one thing often hear from municipal leaders is the worst thing you can say in municipal politics is because we have always done it that way, we are continuing doing that way.
I
So you
know. I
always
think
are continuing to grow. So let's talk about that just for my final question. What do you expect to hear? What do you expect to do in this year's convention? Because I know the role of president, you're often pulled in 19 million directions at these conventions. But what are you expecting to learn? What are you expecting to grow? And how are you expecting to bring bold leadership into the role for this 3 day convention?
Well, it's, that's, you're right. It's hard as the president at the convention, because you really don't get the chance to stop and chat with people. And that's a yucky feeling when you're there. You got to be here and you got to be there. And really, you just kind of want to chat and talk to somebody, because I love to talk. So, but what I do hope is that some of the messaging and some of the speakers is, I like the motivational guest speakers. I feel that for me, it gets me a little bit grounded and motivated to keep going on now, say for this next year. I'm encouraged about the fact that we have women delegates from Zambia coming. Myself and Executive Director Volkov went to Zambia through the FCM Women in Leadership program. So they are coming back. And I've learned very quickly how it's important to have international friends and relationships, especially with the interesting relationship we have with our leadership in the South, with President Trump. So I'm encouraged to talk to them to see, because they've had a full year now, and it was very not great hearing the things that the impacts were happening from the president of the USA. So I'm looking forward to hearing their stories also, because I think that we have to be kind of really more than ever stronger together across the world right now. So those are two of the key things I think I'm looking forward to. And of course, to see everybody. I love that. See you, of course. How can I not say that?
Of course, you have to say that on my show. If you were on someone else's show and you say, "Oh, that Chris Brown," but you mentioned something. I just want to just play in that sandbox for one last question, if you don't mind. This convention is a great time to network. It's a great time to talk. It's a great time for development personally. But it also is a great time for the organization and for members to understand that strength in numbers is often better than doing it alone. When advocacy works best when you're doing it as a group, and it sometimes may seem like the smallest communities or the biggest cities may get all the attention, but for AMM, you look at everything through a Manitoba lens, whether that be a rural lens or an urban lens, it's always a Manitoba lens. For yourself, looking at this year's convention, are you excited to have that strength in numbers to head into the final year of your term?
For sure. I mean, strength in numbers is where it's at. If we all have a common voice, and I think that shows the movement we made with bail reform, from municipalities to the province all the way to Ottawa. it's the strength in numbers. It's the one that has the loudest voice. So that's why we have to be bold, have a loud voice. It makes a difference, and we can make a difference for Manitoba municipalities. I so believe that.
Well, President Valentino, I want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sitting down with me. It's always a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing you in Winnipeg in a week and a bit time, and looking forward to these conversations as we continue to go forward. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights. Now, we will be live in person at the AMM convention in Winnipeg this year. So if you are attending and you see us, come over and chat with us. We would love to hear from you and talk to you about yourself and your community. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platforms, or if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button today. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be back with a brand new episode of Municipal Affairs very shortly.